But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Good evening to George, Kevin, Steve, Stu, Al-Walid and Mitch as we look back on the last 7 days at Newcastle United. And back in the news still, this story that won't go away. George, could the Premier League revisit its approval of the Saudi takeover of Newcastle United in light of a US court case involving Live Golf? I mean, this is just relentless, isn't it, this story? And they just seem to chuck it in whenever they feel like it now.
But it's all, for me, it's all journalists and others stirring it up. The real answer is the Premier League wouldn't dare reopen the takeover, because if they did, they'd open such a can of worms that they'd put themselves in the position if they were pushed into a competition court by PIF and Newcastle United. Richard Masters could end up in prison. Because once it goes to competition court, they've got to tell the truth, or else, or you go to prison, and that's what would happen to Richard Masters. And I expect the CEOs or chairman of some of the big six, who colluded in the takes, preventing the takeover to come in. I think they would be in the same position. I think they would have to answer themselves. So there's a little bit of me a mischievous bit of me that wants to say, bring it on. Let's get it out in the open. But I think the only trouble with that is that it would bring the whole lot down like a pack of cards. You know, I think the Premier League would go, and some of the big six would go as well. So I think it would be such a disaster that the Premier League would not dare reopen an investigation into the takeover. They've got all the legal assurances that they needed to push it through, and they haven't changed. And to be perfectly honest, I don't see anybody from Newcastle United getting a sweat on over this. The only ones that are getting a sweat on are the people that are trying to make it a story. And Amnesty International in the background, of course, who are doing all the big push. Well, push away, lads. There is a little... Well, some of the principles of Amnesty I can support, but when they go political, and this for me is political, they lose my support in some things. See, that they have a go at Saudi Arabia, yet they have not once ever commented on the progress that's been made in Saudi Arabia and that part of the world in the last decade. I mean, I've seen how things have changed, going to our knees for the last 11 years and all that sort of thing, and other things in terms of education in Saudi Arabia with through the British Council, through university education things I did. It's all changed immeasurably. And not once have they commented, for example, that Newcastle United is run by a lady. And now, on the principle of all the horrible things that they're saying, the Band of Stable shouldn't have anything to do with it. But that's all gone by the board. It's a one-sided story as far as I'm concerned, and it's just to placate journalists and the ones who want to get involved, like Amnesty International. But go back to what I said at the beginning: the Premier League would not dare reopen the takeover, in my view.
Yeah, lots of noise, Kevin, about this. I'm not sure whether you're seeing it across in the States, but it never goes away. It's always going to be brought up and dredged up, I guess, by people who've got an agenda.
Exactly, and the biggest thing is it's again with the anti-competition between Live and the PGA Tour. That's where the whole story is coming from. The PGA Tour are not very happy with Live and how they're going about it. It's just like the big six with Newcastle United in the Premier League, essentially, and they don't like another tour being involved, another tour being resurrected, if you will. And you see it across. I watch a lot of golf when I'm not working or coaching up, watching Newcastle United. That's what I watch a lot. And you see women, they're very heavily involved in the women's side of the game of golf. And that's, again, sponsored through Aramco and the ladies series and things like that. So they see it as a big competition to the PGA Tour. At the end of the day, I haven't really seen much or read into it. I've seen a little bit of Richard Martz's comments just before we came on here, and that basically we can't say anything until there's been a judgment or been a decision being made from the Premier League. Well, how long is that going to take? We're still waiting for Man City's financial fair play decision to be played out and Everton's issues to be played out. Well, we're just going to get dragged into whatever story they decide to. So again, lazy journalism. It's easy for them because it's Live and the Saudi Arabian government just decide to start their own golf league. So the PGA Tour are pissed off essentially because obviously they're losing their big players, earning more money. So now the PGA Tour have had to resurrect their own tour and regalvanize themselves in terms of how can they pay more money to top level players and try to keep them around. So again, we're just going to get dragged into it. It's just crying over spilt milk essentially, and just let them get on with it. If we get dragged into it, we get dragged into it. But I don't see that occurring, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, Steve, what's your views on this?
Yeah, the same as the other two. I think it's a story that they're always going to bring up, just for, especially times like now when there's no football on. We've had this international break, and they're looking for stories because there's nothing, and it's a time to bring it up. I totally agree with George that bring it on if they want to, but we'll get to see Keith's letter eventually. The thing for me, you see, I think Richard Masters was asked in the parliamentary committee the other day, and he just played a straight bat on it. But you never see them going and ask the press go and asking any comment from the top six or any other Premier League clubs, because I think they'll get exactly the same answer, and they'll run for the hills, any of the cartel clubs. So non-story for me, and I don't think anybody in the club are going to be losing any sleep over it.
Stu, it's I think you summed it up on Twitter, didn't you, about those people in the media, people using friends in the media. But it's again just much ado about nothing. I think George summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, I've wrote a few bullet points down rather than go on. So I've just last night I spoke with Mitch and with Steve Hasty, and I said, look, this is my understanding and interpretation of the situation. And they both come back with 100% and thumbs up. So, like myself, I like to keep it simple. So I'll just put it down in bullet points so everyone knows my train of thought. Basically, first point, Yasser Al-Rumayyan, he's a senior government minister. He's exempt from prosecution. So that's you've got the LIV in America saying, well, we want to prosecute him or at least question him. They can't do that. But when PIF purchased the majority of Newcastle United, it was under the standing that there was no state influence from Saudi Arabia. Now, we have names such as Stavely, Godoshi, Eels, Silverman, Rubin, Ashworth, Howe, all active in running of Newcastle United Football Club. There's no inkling of state influence there. Repeatedly, I've explained that the way the Saudi business has been operated is they don't profess to be the experts on every vocation, but they will hire those who are to give it every opportunity of creating the best outcome. The LIV Golf and Newcastle United Football Club are different entities, let alone different sports. Let's not mix them. You can't mix things when it suits you, and then they're separate when it doesn't suit you. There's a few lawyers. The most high-profile one is Nick DeMarco, but Shahid Fatima. There's loads of them that represent Newcastle in these cases and done the due diligence and everything else. The highly respected members of their legal profession. Do you think that, or do you not think that every possible scenario would have been covered prior to the purchase of the club, and every eventuality would have been covered? Of course, it would have. And something that Mitch and myself are very fond of saying is, the way Saudis do businesses is through the front door waving, saying we've succeeded. They're not into this doing things sly and trying to, a bit like what the cartel are trying to do at the moment. And I will reiterate once more, and that without the CAT case, BN would still be waiting for their money from Saudi Arabia. I absolutely 100% believe this. And despite what others will let you lead you to believe, or what they think and what they try to spin it to suit their own narrative, I can categorically, in my whole opinion, is they would still be waiting for that money. The cat case caused the Premier League, to want of a better phrase, shit the pants. They knew that everything was going to crash down around them, and they had to scurry and try and save face. Okay, save your face. Give us our takeover. And within days, it was accepted and put through. And just before that, there you go. You can have your money now, because, as we've said, Saudi want to do things through the front door and do things in the proper way. They couldn't own or part or majority own a Premier League football club and not legally have the games being shown in their country. So there you go. We know we're getting it right. You can have your money, claim what you want. We've got the club at a stinkingly, stupidly low price if you look at what's been touted for others. So we'll have to say thank you to Mr. Keith Patterson once again, because I sent him a new pen today when all these people were getting excited saying this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And so no need to get Henry and Keith. We're on the same page. We know that they haven't got a legal leg to stand on. And to me, it's just smoke screen from the stooges of the mainstream media who are twerking and out of hope more than expectation for this Qatari or potential Qatari takeover of Man United. And it's a case of, well, look, you've let that one through. If the defence becomes so robust, yes, this is why that was allowed through. Well, this one can be done the same to try and pass it through. But again, we've discussed how the person leading their bid, or the sole person pretending to be in the bid, and Mitchell will be able to expand on it a bit more, is worth less than Mike Ashley. Why on earth would you want someone with less money than Mike Ashley running one of the most famous clubs in the world? Is beyond me. But because he wears a dish dash, okay, that sounds romantic. But the guy from the UK, Jim Ratcliffe, he's got far more personal wealth, 15 times more personal wealth than that man. So if that's not a cover to say it's the state trying to fund the Qatari bid, if there is such a thing, they're just sounding things out, and they're using Newcastle as a vehicle to try and meet their own ends. So that's it. To me, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. Let them crack on, because they wouldn't dare put us in court, because we've never broke anything that was agreed in the first place, and we're very, very unlikely to break any agreement that was said at the time of our takeover. They're worried, and they're just trying to look what he's doing as they try and sneak in things for themselves. We're in the clear, and they hate it, and let it continue. Just smile when you see stories like this rather than get angry. That's my advice, and that's my thoughts.
Great stuff. Al-Walid, what's your thoughts about this, constantly being in the news in the UK? I presume it's a non-story in Saudi Arabia.
Not you, Al-Walid, the story.
I'm really sad that I receive many messages from my Geordies friends. They are saying like, "Are we okay? Are we good?" I'm sad that some of fan worries about this. I believe, as you guys, most of the fans should be used to get this. Always when there is no story, as you said, guys, they just try to get attention, and there is agenda, always agenda. Especially against Newcastle, it will be always agenda. I'm not surprised if American owners of I'm just speculation. Will not be surprised if other American owned teams in Premier League also try to support some journalists to increase this stuff in UK. As I understand from the Gulf, as I was close to the Gulf lately, I just read about it and talk to some friends about it. As I understand that PIF tried to do some business with PGA. PGA push them away. So that's okay. So that's why they start to leave, and they play, as Mr. Stewart says, it's in the front door. They did some, golf champion in Chicago, and they play with the Trump. So if anything was illegal, those tournaments will not be played in first place. So I think this is sum up. So we should just ignore and focus on Newcastle. This is just Just quiet days news, nothing else.
Yeah,
Steve, can
wouldn't
I
be-
ask Al-Walid a question, please?
Go for it.
Al-Walid, why do you call me Mr. Stew? And you call Mitch Sir Mitch, and it's Sir Keith, and it's Sir
Oh,
Steve
sorry.
Hasty, and it's Sir Steve Wraith. Why am I Mr. and they're Sirs?
Just keep me in your
Like
place.
Get off.
Just keep me in your place, man.
I wanted him to say because they're so much older, but
Guilty, my lord.
I do like it. Now he's gone. He's disappeared. You've huffed him.
I'll probably get a message.
He's back.
Here he is. Man, he's back now.
No, he's thought better of it. He stormed out in a fit.
Sorry for this, but I have some problem with the phone.
What's the answer?
I hear the question. You said why I said Mr. Actually, it's just you know, sometimes when I speak English, it's not my first language. Sometimes I so it's good. I said Mr. That was is fine. It's nothing. I mean nothing by this. Just all the just respect for you all guys. Nothing.
Yeah,
I was only joking.
I love it. Mitch, your thoughts on this?
Richard Masters is Chief Executive of the Premier League. His job is to protect Premier League interests, and the non-answer effectively keeps everything at arm's length. That's what he's there to do. It keeps the people who basically had a go during the takeover, didn't want the takeover to happen, and all of that, then it keeps them happy because there's a bit of wiggle room. Dan Rowan can't come and beat him with another stick. And it keeps him quiet for a bit. It just keeps everything at arm's length. It keeps his relationship with the top six, or the big six as they were. Because until the Super League, they had such a cosy relationship with those. And that's been ravelled. And so he wants to keep them happy too. And so it keeps them happy where there might just be that little element of doubt. Even though everybody, I suspect in football knows it's not going to happen. You've also got to look at where the Premier League are right now. What are they dealing with right now? Right. They've just referred Everton to an independent commission because it seems like they're incapable of applying their own rules. They've got Chelsea coming up at a rate of knots. Their FFP is so all over the place. I think even a fire sale next season can't drag them back. I think even a fire sale in Champions League will, if they manage to win the Champions League, will drag them back. Again, another example of Todd Bowley totally understanding FFP, but not understanding football at all. They've got a battle with the Football League about television money and about parachute payments. That's going on. The last thing they need right now is to come and investigate us again on a spurious claim from nobody within the world of football. Nobody within the world of football. And so the easiest thing to do is play the straight bat, Chris Tavares style, and go, I can't comment on that. And the one thing that does though is throws a member club under the bus. Doesn't look like it's defending a member club of the Premier League. But they've showed throughout the takeover, they don't give a stuff about us, they don't give a stuff about the fan base. All they care about is the Premier League and the cosy relationships they have across football. Do you know their relationship with our fan base is already hostile and has been for some time? So this isn't really going to make any difference to that, is it? So a non-answer effectively keeps so much at arm's length without them having to do a thing. I think he looked terribly ineffective in front of that committee. I think he looked really quite weak. And he's done this before. In terms of football governance, again, they've got this all going on at the moment. So a non-answer keeps people with a political agenda at arm's length because there's just enough wiggle room to say, well, they might be investigating, this is great. And so it just keeps that element of doubt, keeps everybody, absolutely everybody at arm's length, because they're at the minute sitting drinking coffee like that meme in a cafe that's on fire, saying everything's fine, when there's so much is not fine within the Premier League, and there's so much is not fine within our game at the moment. Today's revelations about Vitesse Arnhem and potential payments from Abramovich
Yeah,
and all of that.
yeah.
That stokes another little fire, because it then starts to come back to the Chelsea sale and say, well, hold on a minute. There was money supposed to be paid into a bank account, and that's supposed to have gone to victims of the war. What's happened to that at the minute? And so there are so many little fires that have the potential to become huge fires, that he's trying to run around with a little fire blanket and put out. That this is just another thing he doesn't need, and a non-answer is just enough to keep everybody at bay and keep it, kick that can down the road. And where we said that.
On his appearance before the committee, Neil, he'd make a terrible witness in court.
Oh, I'm quite sure under pressure in a courtroom with the right lawyers, he would be destroyed.
Yeah.
Didn't you even kick it at the long grass rather than down the road?
I don't know.
That's what he says all the time.
Last time I went to the long grass, I found a Japanese sniper, but that's because I was looking for my ball when I was playing golf.
The emerging legal jurisdictions in fallacious bullshit. All states, federal courts in the US are different jurisdictions. What happens in the US is not the UK, says Kirk. Les agrees. Mitch, she says, I'd expect more from CEO. And Tim Cairns says, as like Mr. P mentioned, if we're re-examined, then it opens a can of worms. Give the rest the two fingers and mind their own business. It is jealousy. Barry says Chelsea are still being linked with more players, including Ward Prowse. Can't wait to see them go bust. And Alan Thompson says, Mitch, what saddens me is that other fans, like Everton's fans, who call our takeover illegal, you couldn't make it up after what's happening to them. So, yeah, lots of opinions.
And I speak to quite a few of them out here from other teams, because that's the nature of being out here. You have so many different supporters clubs, got so many pubs. You go in, you start to meet some of them and have a bit of crack with some of them. And some of the views are very interesting. I think that's because, again, we've got a mix of expat views from this region. So their attitude towards Saudi is probably quite different. But, the Everton at the minute, they're looking for any way out to point fingers and cause a distraction, because I suspect when they start digging through where's money being coming from the offshore companies, the Vitesse Arnhem Chelsea thing, Mashori and his former business partner, the Russian guy, Usmanov, I suspect there's things to find there, and they're going to be sweating as a club, thinking, well, hang on, if we start digging through this even further, we could be in an even bigger bother, And everybody, football clubs and football teams and football supporters are very good about talking about taking a unified front. But when the pressure comes, when the pressure's put on, everybody reverts to one thing: self-interest. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it is. You care more about your own club than anybody else. And we've seen that with the clubs who nearly agreed on ending the season on average points, and then 3 or 4 of them chucked the toys out the cot when they realised they were going to take from playoff positions and stuck into not playoff positions, and other people were going to get their position in playoff positions, etc., etc. And football always talks a good game about unity, but it's not. It's tribal, and you're always going to care about your own team more. And that time immemorial, we can prove that to ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. We've got 5 minutes before the ads, so it's time for Ask George. Gary says, can you ask George, if he was marooned on an island, which 5 people would you want to be marooned with?
Oh, my goodness. Right, here goes. Chief Scout would be first, because he could keep us alive. Out of sheer interest, one of the big authors, somebody who could tell a good story, Roald Dahl, perhaps, for physical exercise, well, the Chief Scout can do that as well, but there are 1 or 2 fitness gurus who interest me, and one of them used to be on the telly, and I can't remember his name now.
Mr. Motivator.
Mr. Motivator. Mr. Motivator. And then,
what about Olivia Newton-John? She could sing as well.
Well, yes, but
we're waiting for the female one.
Well, it's coming. It's coming. If I'm pushed on female entertainment or companionship, it's going to be somebody absolutely gorgeous. Even somebody like I don't know, not somebody too young, but better not name somebody that's known on here,
okay.
otherwise
I'll dig you out of that hole, but we know that. Okay, you'll have a girl Friday. We know that.
And
is Mitch going with you, George?
You could get the green colours, George.
Well, hold on, yes, that's number 5. Yes, my son would come.
Depends who the woman is.
Well, yeah, I mean, he could keep her healthy. Yeah, that's right. So that's off the top of my head.
That's a good one, that, Gary. You certainly caused a bit of a stir with that question, by the way. Next question for George.
Cause a stir. I'm sweating like a bloody.
Really heating up. I'll speak to you in private about who you're thinking of. Tim Cairns, his question for George: Cod or haddock?
Cod, please.
I don't think he's delivering it. Barry Hogan says, trivia question for George. What year was the first on record that Newcastle didn't have a Scottish player in their playing staff?
Wow. I've got to be honest and say I can't even think about that one.
Good question. Do you know the answer, Barry? That's what I'm going to ask you.
That's
so, Barry,
going to say, if you can tell us, I'd be delighted. But I can't remember in my lifetime anyway. If it is, that it's slipped by me, I'm afraid.
I've had a few suggestions about who you could take on the island, by the way, George. Carol Vorderman, Hilda Ogden from Coronation Street, Linda Lovelace,
Big Stone,
Raquel Welsh, says Geordie Toon.
Raquel Welsh, that's who I would have suggested for George.
Kelly Ranson suggests Steve Hasty in a wig.
No, thanks. Carol Vorderman would do nicely. Somebody with a bit of intelligence.
And she can add up. Yep, she can add up. She can sort things out. She may be able to come up with a formula to get you off the island and get you out of this mess. Steve Mowat asks, Your Honour, he calls you, if he was on the parole board, what would he do regarding Charlie Bronson's potential release from prison?
Well, if I was on the parole board, I would try and get it done before the idiots that's in power now are going to change it all and allow the government ministers to change what the parole board's decided. If they do that, what the hell's the point of having a parole board? You give them the job to do it, and then suddenly when they do it, you don't like it. So you say you don't want it to happen, which is absolute typical right-wing tripe as far as I'm concerned. If I was on with Charlie Bronson, I would do what I'd be trained to do as a magistrate of over 30 years. I'd look at the evidence, weigh the evidence, and come out with an answer that is the right answer for everybody. But this notion that ministers can overturn that is just, well, it's right-wing nonsense as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, but I would just weigh the evidence.
Jackie Nicholson says, Mitch and Mr. Motivator having a dance-off on the island. God, we've created something here, haven't we? Barry Hogan says, 1982 it was, George, in one of the books that he's read when John Brownlee left. So that was...
Well, Steve and I are nearly up to that in the those were the days. So it'll give us a chance to have a look at it.
And with the match being on Sunday, there'll be no professionals this Sunday, Mitch and Stu. So those were the days, season 74, 75, with me and George. It's already in the can. That'll go live 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. Last one on this, George, Marilyn Monroe, Bridget Bardot, Sophia Loren, and Ingrid Bergman, and a large chest of Viagra. I think we'll just leave it. We'll leave that there. We'll leave that
Marilyn Monroe, please. Marilyn Monroe, please.
You get them all, George.
Moving on swiftly to the ads. Big thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk and place an order by phoning 01768 210 102. Thanks to Fruity Vita Getaways. Book your holidays or short breaks in the UK or around the world with them. Let them find your happy place. ABTA and ATOL registered. You can contact them by emailing fruityvitagetaways@gmail.com. Call or text 0792 842 7895 and join their Facebook group at Fruity Vita Getaways. Thanks to Media Arts for all the technical help and videos that they do. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. If you want to join the channel, click join and you can see the various rates that you can pay to help support us. If you want to join by subscribing, hit the subscribe button, that is free. Hit the thumb up under the video to help the algorithm, and click share to share to other social media platforms. If you do subscribe, we do give you a free car sticker. Just email John at nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. If you want to join the cult, which is a one-off payment of £25, where you get a scarf, a pen, a cup, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to nufcmatters.com and look for the cult membership, or put your phone over this smart code and it will take you straight there. We are available as well as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. And we do support the food bank on this channel. So if you want to make a virtual donation from anywhere in the world, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and put your money into the match day bucket. We've got some events coming up. First off in April the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 11th. Peter Beardsley Soccer School is back for ages 6 to 16 years. Go to peterbeardsleysoccerschool.com for more information. An evening with John Anderson at the Time House Surf Cafe, Tuesday the 18th of April. Book your tickets direct from the venue. An evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson 2 nights later, Thursday the 20th of April at the Irish Centre. Tickets from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Nobby Solano at Laurel's in Whitley Bay is May the 11th. So contact the venue direct if you want to go to that event. And we've got our NUFC Matters end of season party, which is the 27th of May at 7 o'clock. Tickets are a tenner from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Rob Lee at Louis Liquor Store, 1st of June, and tickets direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford, Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel Gosforth, which is in aid of the Healing Tour charity. And you can get your tickets direct from them at the healingtour.org.uk website. Just click events. A little bit later in the year, an evening with Gavin Peacock, July the 10th. Tickets from nufcmatters.com for that one. And if you like your boxing, a night of champions featuring Frank Bruno, Ricky Hatton, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe. Tickets for that one from goldstarpromotions.com. Okay, I got a question from Alan Thompson here. He says, question, lads, Everton fans were also saying that there should be a spending cap, say 200 million each club, so to make the Premier League fairer, no matter how rich your club is. Do you agree on a spending cap, Mitch?
No, because the people who have just spent the last 3 years running the cart and horses through spending are the ones asking for it now. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it. And FF pick to make you spend within your means, and therefore, if that's not a spending cap, I don't know what is. These things, caps and things like that, only work in closed leagues with no relegation, because then you know generally what you've got coming in, what you've got going out in general, and then you can put caps on, which really just makes a degree of fairness, as you see within the NFL at the minute. They're going through free agency and players are moving around. And that's all about making clubs think about how to set teams up and think about where they're going to apply their resources carefully. And that's great in the NFL. It doesn't work in the Premier League, will never work in football. And it's quite ironic to hear Everton fans talking about it.
Yeah, look, we've got a special guest, Al Walid.
Yes, and she wearing black and white.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, my youngest girl, Hayat.
Fantastic, mate. Hi.
Aye.
So, do you think there should be a spending cap, Al Walid?
Actually, if this happens, we'll call it Communist Premier League.
Communist.
Doesn't work at all.
It's funny, isn't it, though? Suddenly, Newcastle have some money to spend, and now there should be a spending cap.
No, this is just funny. It's Premier League proud of Premier League now, and it's the rich of our best league in the world. So if they do this, the value of the Premier League will decrease very much.
Okay, we'll let you get back to babysitting duties there. I genuinely can't see there being a spending cap. It's a suggestion, Stu. It's crazy, really, isn't it? That suddenly now Newcastle have a takeover, and that people are trying to put that into the equation now.
Iron Brew and Blue Ice Cubes for Scotland's fantastic win. Was that the question?
No.
It hasn't been mentioned yet.
Definitely not, mate. We don't do international football on here. I find it boring, and I don't watch it. I watch the.
I was going to start a GoFundMe page to get tissues sent to Spain, but irrespective, the spending cap, no, that's quite simple, because they talk about financial fair play. So if you look at clubs, use Manchester United as an example, that can generate a great deal of wealth, and then put that against someone like Crystal Palace, who can't generate anywhere near, that would put more clubs in danger than the other if the limit was the same. And also, this is football, not Formula One. Just stop tinkering with something that doesn't need to be tinkering with, and let them govern themselves. If people get themselves bust, the financial fair play was brought in to protect people, not to help people. And I think that's become painfully clear as the days, weeks, and months roll on. So definitely no spending cap, and that's not because we don't have unlimited funds, because the PAF fund is not the sole proprietary of Newcastle United. They've got money to spend to improve Newcastle United, to generate Newcastle United, and buy it as a business to make money. But yes, we are in a financial situation, strangely, thanks to Mike Ashley for not getting into debt, where others are living off debt. Now, if people could spend £200 million a year, first of all, it would distort the market, because everyone would just ask for 100 million or 200 million for players that aren't even worth it. And too many clubs would go to the wall, and the great game would be lost forever.
Yep, Steve, it's just garbage, isn't it? This it's just more rhetoric coming now from fans about spending caps, etc. From a club that's broken rules and regulations, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's, as I said earlier on, it's a non-time. There's not proper games going on. Pardon that, Stu. I'm sorry to say that. There's no league games and Champions Leagues or anything like that going on at the minute. So they're looking for stories, and anything like that comes up. If it had been brought in at the time when the Premier League started, if the Premier League was established in the early 90s and it was going to have some sort of rule like this, that was the time to do it. Not midway through, when everybody's now, in various states of debt and planning of spending over so many years. As much as there's Everton, and there's probably others that are borderline on the FFP, I'm sure there are a lot of clubs, and Newcastle are I think one of them, playing the rules in FFP, so it works. So there's no need for a cap. So it's ridiculous to come from a club who is obviously trying to bend the rules to suit themselves and hold everybody else back, which is what they're going to get. They're going to get probably a transfer ban at some point in time. When it gets sorted, it might be 2 or 3 years before that gets sorted, going on the way they went on with Man City. So it's not the thing to do. If you manage your club properly, you can spend what you like, but the rules have to be enforced.
Kevin, you're nodding away there.
Yeah, obviously not a big follower MLS, but this is how the MLS works. Essentially, it's the USA model of spending caps through NFL, any USA sport. It depends on the sport. Basketball, Major League Baseball get a guaranteed money of their salary essentially for a player. That's regardless of how many games they play. NFL, if you miss games, you don't get paid. But in the MLS over here, we have things called designated players, which basically you're the top earners within that club, and then everybody else gets subsequent monies based through i.e. the Premier League or the MLS, US soccer, whatever you want to call it. So I don't agree with it. I don't think this, because there's no promotion relegation, there's no influx of money. The only way the influx of money comes into clubs is through player sales, and or if we have a trade or like a transfer within the MLS, we would get money. Say, I don't know, some low end player, we would get $120,000 or $300,000 in cap money for that player, and it would go through the MLS. It wouldn't go directly to Atlanta United where I live. It would go through the MLS and be filtered through. So the head honchos figure out that salary cap, and then the owners have to figure out, like NFL teams and the Stan Kroenkes of the world, who are in deep doo-doo over here of what he's got going on. I have to figure out in terms of, okay, I've got X player, you only allow 3 designated players per team. So if they're on X amount, then you've got to figure out who's getting what, who's getting this, who's getting that. So that money's got to be distributed further. So it's a filtered down effect. And again, it levels the playing field, unfortunately. It's just dependent on owners, dependent on things like that. So I don't agree with it. I think I don't watch it, to be honest. My son wants to watch it all the time, and I think it's crap, to be fair, because it's a level playing field. But it's just the American model, and that's what the large part of the top 6 are owned by the American model, and that's what they're trying to enforce within the Premier League. I think it should be, whatever you earn, you spend. And again, like Mitch said, it's basically, within your means. You cut your cloth accordingly, and then you go from there, and there's rules in place. But over here, it's like you're told what to spend, essentially, in terms of dollar amounts. And it's very difficult for like expansion clubs over here to grow and be bigger. There's a lot more bigger investment coming in from owners. So there's a bigger output of money from owners, essentially, versus the incomes coming in. We're thankful that we have Arthur Blank, who's one of the richest men over here in terms of Home Depot and things like that for the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta United, where he can offset monies within the two with the ownership groups, because it's the same 2 entities, essentially. But yeah, it's sad over here, and based on what I see from outside looking in the MLS into the Premier League, and I don't agree with the salary cap whatsoever. But it is what it is. I don't think it'll ever happen in the Premier League, because I think it's, where the hierarchy in terms of where football is, and we started the whole thing. So I think we should be the light, how it should be done. But yeah, don't agree with it. Don't like it. It's pretty much crap at the end of the day, because the football at the end of the day is terrible.
If I can jump in a little bit, all these things were brought in with the MLB and with the NFL to stop unlimited spending from very high wealth owners. There's clubs. There's a couple of examples. There's one baseball club. Their 3rd highest earner next season is somebody who retired 10 years ago because he agreed on a long-term settlement to pay off his contract that was so big that they could no longer afford to pay him.
Was he from the New York Mets by any chance?
No, I think it's
or Philadelphia. Somebody, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's carnage.
Angels, I think, which
you've got some weird situations with baseball and with. I think there's another team's paying somebody off. He's been retired for 25 years and he's still on the payroll.
Yeah, same thing. He's like a billionaire.
It's just nuts. And so you can see why they've wanted to modify their models, because some of these weird things that they're allowed to happen when there was almost unlimited spending and nobody's putting checks on it. FFP is and should be the kind of check within football that should allow that to be reined in if it's applied properly. What we've seen so far, however, is for the Premier League to say, we think of it and they've broke the rules, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to work with them. We're going to see if we can, make this better. And then when it's obvious that they've broke the rules by so much, there's no workaround here, they then kick it to an independent commission because they can't apply their own rules. I mean, that's just nuts. That's just, it's bullshit, really.
Mitch, can I ask Kev a quick question? Like, Kev, as a coach in America, as you are, I was reading that they're after Messi to get him in the MLS. But how they do it is each club have to contribute towards his salary. So you as a coach...
That's what I'm saying through the MLS.
Yeah. And your club is paying for another club to have this player.
That's the designated...
Mbappe and Newcastle have to give $5 million towards it. It's mental, isn't it? So as a coach, what's your opinion on that?
Well, that's the designated player rule. That's the designated player. He'll be the highest earner, but they'll fluctuate monies to get his salary. And again, Atlanta will pay into MLS, like the Premier League.
Yeah, and then subsidise it, don't they?
Pretty much, and that's what I'm saying. Again, it makes no sense to me. It drives me up the wall. I'm saying not a high level coach or whatever, but as a youth level, they try and for the pathways to get to that. It doesn't seem. I mean, you get Messi's, you get Ronaldo's, you get Bales who come over, and they're the highest earners by a long way. We lost Joseph Martinez from Atlanta down into Miami. He hasn't even kicked a ball, but he's a designated player, and we're still paying into the MLS to pay his salary, even though he's not our player anymore. But it's just weird. It's just they do it arse backwards, arse before, L before your arse, essentially, whatever you want to call it. It's nuts, but again, at the same time, it's not the greatest watch. It's like the championship, essentially. But it is what it is. We accept it based on living here for quite a while. You live with it, with the NFL, with the draft caps and all the rest of it. You send players from multi-million-dollar deals. It's like, how in the world did you get that money? But at the same time, it's all. I mean, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, essentially. You're grabbing this money, but then you're paying him over X amount of years, guaranteed money of nearly $200-300 million a year. It's like, okay, but that's what he's going to get. It's like, how in the world is that going to work out? You're not even filling a stadium, but it's just how it works, mate. I'm even confused by it. It's even worse than FFP. Half these franchises should go under, essentially.
It's been a big success story, haven't it? So imagine that you're a coach for Atlanta and you think, right, we've done so well. And then you look at buy a player within your means and then say, sorry, we've got to put $5 million away because Los Angeles, for example, are going to sign Messi. You've got to help pay for that. So you're paying for another team to be better than you. This is a bit like the reversal of financial fair play, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It creates a divide, doesn't it?
But and they try to level it out. So they try, when they get into the playoffs, they'll try and create, like the NFL back end of like the NFL and the playoff systems and stuff like that. What we have here, like that's how we have no promotion relegation. It's all playoff based. So that's why they level it out. So if we wanted to trade with LA or whoever, we could say, all right, we'll have him, but we're going to get monies in terms of designated player money. And then, but still have to pay everybody else within the trades and stuff like that. There's just floating money everywhere. It's like offshore bank accounts. So we'll funnel money into you, but then we'll get money back and all sorts of stuff. But again, it comes down to ownerships and owners. And our owners, one of the best. When obviously we've got the best CEO in this country, and what we have now in Darren Neal, in terms of figuring out getting the best players for the lowest cost of what we can. And be, again, financially stable moving forward and getting the best out of it. It's been poor the past few years. We won the MLS Cup, which is the big title. So, and that was under Tata Martinez with Miggy and all them players. And we had a great year, but ever since then, it's been terrible. We had Frank de Boer as a manager. So And we've had Gabriel Heinze, who's a gaffer, and that didn't even work out. So again, you've got to get like what I get. You get a bunch of mediocrity, and you've got to go with what you got essentially. And everybody moves and this and that. It's carnage. And then you got the college draft, which players coming out of college then get drafted into you. They might not even sign a pro contract. It's just how it works, and then they'll move on, but you might get some money for them, but then you'll move them on, and the MLS will pay you, and then they'll get money. It's so complicated. Who gets what, how much, So yeah, it's just how the United States sports realm works, unfortunately, and thankfully MLS players are guaranteed money and they get a decent wages, just not enough. It's nowhere near the Premier League. It's like League Two money.
What's your thoughts, George?
Well, just to follow up what all the lads are saying, it should be a non-starter as far as we're concerned. And if you look at other sports, even in this country, that have tried the same sort of thing, it nearly destroyed cricket. And then cricket had a second go when the Indian Premier League came into being and started to pay real money. And all of our big stars were getting asked to go and play in the Indian Premier League. And the MCC and the England selectors are saying, well, you can't go there. If you go there, you'll not play for England. So what did the players say? Well, stick your England contract. It's peanuts compared to what I'm getting in India. And every time somebody tries to control in this way, it's flopped, and it's flopped in football. And while we're grumbling at the moment because FFP seems to be hard on us, the honest answer is, as Neil and Stu and others have said, is that FFP actually, if it's applied properly, is a sensible way to run football and the amount of money that's going into football. But no wage caps for me, I'm afraid. That'd be the end of it for me.
Anybody on the panel change their minds on McTominay?
No.
Yeah. Anybody?
No.
Never had one.
Well, there's a lot of people in the time, on the Twitter time.
I'll answer David.
My opinions.
Question.
Sorry.
There's a lot of flip flop.
Go for it.
Go on.
Yes, I would. He's a World Cup winner, and he's 21. He plays in the 10, and just watch his not last game because we got smashed 6-1. He wasn't playing, but anyway. But watch his performances in the past 2 home games that we played for Atlanta United, and watch Thiago Almada. He's like he's very slightly small. He's different to Miggy, but he's very for me to say he's like not an Alexander Isak, but he's a very, very good player. I mean, he can strike a ball from a dead ball. He can pick a pass. He's just that little, not a Messi, but he's on that trend to where he could be the top Argentinian player in their squad. He scored the other night against Panama as well. So he's a very, very good player. And I was, again, trying to speak within the club and say, hi, I'll scout him for a while and get some money off of him. But yeah, so he'd be the one for me to just keep an eye on, because he's a very, very good footballer. And I think he can fit in really well of how we want to play.
Go on, Stu. We'll give you a moment. Scotland played well. I mean, 2 great results. JC did win the business with Steve Clarke. New contract for Clarkey as well. So
yeah. Speaking of last night, when he was in the change room, and you could hear the obviously the boisterous of the team. And the last time Scotland were like that is when they won away at Bosnia. Even though they beat Denmark last season, they beat Ukraine this season 3-0, not 2-0. The last time when Scotland won a game worthwhile like that was Serbia away. And JC ended up coming out the change room on crutches because he twisted his ankle when they're all jumping about. So I said, just make sure you don't come out on crutches. But it shows the unity. And with McTominay, he plays a role for Scotland. And if anyone does watch the game, but I still haven't changed my opinion from what Yas is on Sunday, is he's a decent enough player. But the money that would cost to get him from Man United, and because you get the Newcastle United tax, etc., to me that money would be better spent elsewhere. And that's it. He wouldn't make our best start 11 next season if we sign the players that we're linked to. So why would he come and sit on our bench rather than stay on theirs? You know, and I think he had a point to prove over the weekend. I mean, it must be quite hard for any player to be kept out of the team because of Fred. So you can imagine he's straining at a leash to show that he is a decent player. But Scotland played him in a bit more of an advanced role yesterday, and that's not how he plays. But the role that he played would be the role that we're hoping that Bruno will be playing next season if we get a proper number 6. I'm saying this number 6, defensive midfielder. And that's the one I've been championing for ages is Calvin Phillips. I see his name's been linked again. But that's simply because he's not getting the game. But the one I would like would be Alvarez from Ajax. And if you've got a midfield of him, Bruno, plus one other, and a forward line of Isaac, Kane, and, shall we say, Madison, can you imagine? You've got the Willocks, the Longstaffs, possibly even the Joe Lintons on the bench. That's how 2 or 3 quality signings can change our forward thinking. And then if you add Tierney at left back, anyone watches Tierney play, they'll admit he's a fantastic player, and his injury record is not as bad as what's said. So you add that to that defence, maybe he's one more tweak to cover at centre half or even for right back. And we are genuinely in with a shout for another Champions League place next season. And it's only 3 or 4 players that need to be added. And as I've always said, cut the dead wood at the bottom, quality at the top, and then what you'll find now is regular starters become our bench. And we've said all season the bench isn't strong enough to compete on a regular basis, and we keep dumbfounding the critics, and hopefully that continues through to the end of May. But if this season's a fluke, next season will be by pure, not by chance, by good management, good signings, and everything else. So next season, I honestly think will be the biggest in Newcastle United's history. Scotland beats Spain, and life's perfect. I'm off to Rome tomorrow night, and then to Tenerife. And Newcastle are going to beat Man United, and I'll be in Rome watching it. There we go.
Well, let's face it. If Scotland can beat Spain, anything can happen. There's no doubt about that. Just stop the talk of Kane. There is no chance. 0. Yep, Stu started that off last week, didn't he? And there's lots of people talking about it now. People are talking about him going to Manchester United and saying it's a done deal. I mean, I'd love to know how. They don't even know who their owner's going to be next week. So from our perspective, don't believe everything you read in the papers. But listen, Stu never said he was signing for us. He said preliminary talks were taking place. It was as simple as that. It wasn't. He's definitely coming to Newcastle.
Exactly.
That's.
And I heard the phone call and he had to shut me mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go, and that's just the way it is. Okay, I'm gonna have obviously Mitch and George with us on the Amigos on Friday. So Kevin, we'll start with you. Prediction for the weekend against Manchester United, please.
2-0 win.
2-0 win to Newcastle. Okay. Steve.
Yes, I'm going the same. I think we are on the up there, having a dodgy time, and I think we'll get revenge for Wembley, and I think it'll be 2-0 as well.
Okay, Stu, you've said a win. What do you reckon?
Surprisingly, I'm going to say a 3-1.
All good. Like all good interviewers, I've got to ask the question. Otherwise, pointless. You just coming and going 3-1. But no, they knew it was going to be 3-1. Al-Walid, your prediction, please.
3-0 Newcastle.
3-0 to Newcastle. Okay, great stuff. I'm back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock with Supermac and Gibbo. And then the Amigos will be 5 o'clock until 7 on Friday. And there goes George. Yes, George?
Just to go back to that horrible question when I was squirming.
Oh, my God.
The only person that isn't here who would have loved that was my Marjorie. She would have loved watching me squirm like that, and especially when we're talking about the female one, because she knew me, and she would have known that Marilyn Monroe would have come in somewhere. So I enjoyed that, really. It was quite nice.
Good stuff. Don't forget, you've still got time to get your tickets for the Bruno Guimaraes signed and custom frame Newcastle United shirt. Get yourself the Football Prizes' website, and the $3.95 a ticket. Lovely framed shirt that get yourself on. Competition ends Thursday the 30th at 7:30. Until tomorrow at 6 o'clock, I'll bid you farewell. See you, lads.
Thank you, lads.